All right. Go.
Caitlin, I'll let you jump off with the honors.
Hi, everyone. Happy Thursday. I'll go ahead and start by calling the meeting to order. So, first item is public invited to be heard. And I don't see anyone, but I want to check and see.
Yeah, we did invite Crystal, but she did not come, which is, it's fine.
Yeah.
She's one of our applicants. That's okay.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is approving the minutes from the September 22nd, 2022 special meeting.
No, it's fine.
Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve.
Okay,
So Graham motion, Robert second.
okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Okay.
I wasn't there, so I don't think I can
You're
vote.
the same, okay. All right, so I'm gonna step in, Caitlin, because the next piece is very interesting. I
Okay,
gotta say, we're gonna have an interesting night tonight.
We have to approve the October minutes first.
Well, that's the thing, we have to approve all of the hearing minutes. We didn't know that before, so we have learned some things, and not everybody attended all the hearing minutes. So, and we're missing Catherine. She's not here tonight, so there's one that only she.
Yeah.
So we can't vote on that one,
No, we cannot.
okay,
so
So it never happened.
So we will.
we will vote when she is here.
Yep.
This is what we're learning from city clerk, that Brenda and I and Erica had no idea about, so. But Kat, you're still gonna have to sign, even if you weren't there, you still have to sign off on them. Now,
Okay.
that being said, because we didn't take any votes, the minutes just basically list who showed up and. Right, that's all they are. So,
This makes sense
you know, we have learned some things.
Yep.
so, can I ask a procedural question on this then?
Yes,
Alberto?
yes,
May I, can we make a motion to essentially, I don't know if it's like unanimous consent to basically approve all the ones that, you know, that everyone here can do? And,
I think we can do that.
and then if everyone says yes, then it approves all the ones that we can and does not do the one that we need to get, Catherine to do.
Yep, I think we can do that. I think that'll work.
Okay,
So can we make the motion?
I will so move.
So move,
Second.
second,
all right, all those
All
in
in favor?
favor?
unanimous. All right, so we're gonna approve all the minutes except the one that Catherine was the only member present. And I don't know which, I think that was housing stability,
So October 11th.
October, except for October 11th. So all except October 11th.
Okay.
All right,
Fantastic. Thank you all. And thank you for learning and adapting with and for us, Eliberto.
yeah, this is why we're scrambling to get you to sign all of the 2020, 2021, getting Brian, where's Brian? We're missing Brian too.
Brian is
Oh,
out.
But we do
shoot.
have a quorum, right?
Yes, and I actually got an auto reply from him saying he was out of the office
Okay, but we do
starting
have quorum.
tomorrow,
That's-
but
Yeah, that's okay, we have quorum.
Okay.
All right. So now we're going to the fun times.
Yes.
Can you bring up or do you want me to do that on this
Sure.
computer? I'll do it.
Yeah.
So first of all, thank you, Caitlin, for getting your scores in. I got them all in.
okay. Sorry, I was a very bad example to everybody. Apologies. I think I literally got them in 20 minutes before this meeting, and I feel incredibly awful for making you scramble and
No worries.
chase
But-
me down. So,
But they are important and they did make a difference that we're gonna have to figure out together here in a little bit.
Okay.
So that is okay. They did make a difference. This is why all of your scores are so valuable to us, because they really do matter. All right, so excuse the mess that is our
Try.
drive.
We are moving to.
We are working on making it better, but right now it's a total mess. All right.
You're probably gonna have to share that screen, Ellie Bear.
Yeah, once I get, well, actually, first I'm going to, before we actually get to this. This is the one I just did right now, but actually before we get to this. We will talk about this in a second. But there's a mistake that I made last year that we need to address. No, it's in here.
Okay.
It's in here. I will start the presentation. Remember. And where is the? Here we go. So I'm going to share this from the beginning. All right, so let me share this. How do I get to? How do I get to this? Hold on.
I think under more, or share screen right
Share screen. All right, I want to share this. Okay, can everybody see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing we're going to take care of is actually a mea culpa. It's an inadvertent error that I made last year. That I'm going to explain what I did right now. And I ran it by Karen and Erica and the board and nobody caught it. I caught it when you all started giving me your scores and I noticed it. So let's get to it right away. So in 2022, well, I guess in 2021 for 2022, the board had asked that the question around target populations be weighted as 2. So times 2. Well, I inadvertently left it as a times 1. And I based the allocation formula and the ranges for our 2022 funded on a times 1 instead of a times 2. Now, because it was applied across the board to every agency, and I went back and I checked all the scores and that is true, then it didn't jeopardize the integrity of the process, but it did not recognize what the board wanted for that question. So we have 2 options. We could go back and change the weighting for this year. And we could set up another meeting and I could come back with the different weighting options and other allocation formulas for you to review. Or we could leave it as a 1 for 2023, like we did in 2022, and then come back to 2024. Because the formula that I worked off is based off of 1, not a 2.
Yeah, it seems number 2 makes more sense. I mean, less complicated, less,
Yeah.
So I'm going to do either. I'll let you guys go and let the board discuss how you want me to move forward.
Yeah. Are there other thoughts on this from folks on the board? Kimberly and then Deanna.
I guess I just want to make sure I understand the impact, because even though it's applied equally to all applications, it could change the total score.
It could, but we would have to adjust the allocation formula as well. So I'm not sure how big of an impact it would have, because
Okay.
It's not just changing the score, it's having to change the formula too.
Because it's weighting this question heavier. So if somebody,
Right.
okay. Yeah, is the work worth it is basically what we're deciding.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Deanna.
That was essentially my question too, was thinking about it in terms of impact and whether the possible outcome change is worth the effort of doing all that. And I don't know if you can sort of eyeball that.
I did eyeball it. It could change. It could put us in a situation where we have to cut more funding. Like this year, we don't have to cut any funding. But depending on the weighting, you could end up having to cut funding. I did do some eyeballing, but I'm not going to by any means say that it was scientific. I just kind of said, oh, if this were to go up, either we'd have to make it more stringent formula, or we'd have to potentially cut funding instead of, we're not cutting anyone's funding this year.
And
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, I think one of the reasons that we wanted to weight this was so that we were like, sort of, if we needed to prioritize the funding, that we could do so in a streamlined and I don't want to say equitable because that's not the right word, but in a, in a systematic way
Right,
across it, because we know that this, like the target populations is important as
Right.
part of the prioritization. And so, without it, maybe we don't have to cut, like limit any funding, but kind of the point behind it was so that we could make sure that the target populations that are part of our priority get some, that we're targeting that, right? Like a little bit better through our allocation.
yeah, and I gotta be honest, I'm not sure how much impact it would make.
But we would have to change the formula.
We'd have to change the formula. I'd have to come back with other options.
I mean, I don't know, that seems like a lot to me at this juncture, like I don't.
It is
know
quite, I mean,
that-
I'll be honest, it is quite a bit, but I'm willing to do it if that's what the board wants. But yeah, I mean, I would recommend that we leave it for this year, since it would be consistent with what we said. And then we come back to 2024, because things may change completely in 2024. But like I said, I am willing to do whatever the board wants me to do.
Do we need a motion or?
Yeah.
More discussion?
Graham, do you have any thoughts? I think you're the only one who hasn't chimed in that's here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember why we weighted that question. I remember weighting questions of diversity, but.
And those did state, those were corrected, those are in the,
Yeah, and for me, that was what was important in terms of weights. I'm not tied to this target population issue. I'm fine leaving it as one. Yeah.
Well, then just to move the discussion forward, if we need a motion, I would move to take option 2 and leave the weight as 1 for 2023 and come back to it for 2024. I'm not sure we need a motion on it, but if we did.
I think we do.
I think we do.
I'll
Okay.
second.
I tend to agree with you since the funding is going to be, it's for 23 is already, no one's gonna get shorted or anything,
Right.
so just change it for 24 when it will have a real difference.
Well,
So I second your.
we've already had a second, so we just need to vote. So Deanna moved, Graham seconded. All those in favor of option number 2, raise your hand.
Okay.
All right.
And again, my apologies for not catching it. I think last year, part of this, we had like so many matrices, we did a lot of work, and I don't know how it escaped I'll be more vigilant, for sure.
Sometimes when you're looking at something so much that you stop seeing it, really.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to have someone like an editor to take it fresh.
Right.
They can see it in a way that you can, you're used
Yeah.
to grazing over.
I think that's probably what happened. And I did run it by Karen, but I was throwing so much at Karen that,
You guys did a lot of work on different scenarios last year.
Yeah, we
I'm
did.
sure, yeah.
all right, so this is now wrong because of Caitlin's scores. It says we have 100,000, but we don't. But we are in the same situation that we were last year. We do have remaining funds. And I want to show you what exactly we have. And this is why scores are so important. Can you all see, are you guys now seeing a spreadsheet?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing and share again, okay?
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing and I'm gonna share again and I'm gonna share the spreadsheet. All right. So here is the new matrix. Are we seeing that now?
Yes.
Okay. I'll make this smaller. Okay, I'll make this smaller. So we're not, let me start. We're not gonna be able to see you here so just go ahead and speak up if you have questions or you wanna, because I'm gonna minimize this so that everybody can see it. All right, so here's the matrix for this year. Should I make this bigger? Let me make this bigger. We're gonna go slowly through it. I'm gonna go all the way back up to the beginning. All right, so we got at least 2 board members per agency, which is kind of the minimum, and many of them had 3, which is great. So we were able to get an average. And when I look at allocations this year, they are a little bit higher, but we also have more money. And people ask for more. So, you know, when we look. So I have a Dream Ask for 2 programs this year, where they had only asked for 1 last year. And they asked for 20,000 to 17,000 more, 16,500 more, and 10,000. And they all got, they were at the 90% fund rate, right? So you got to get above an 88. Okay, so we're gonna go down. The only problem is you can't see. I wonder if I can just hide. So we can see, can I hide these? Do you all want to see last year's awards as well?
I'd like to see the request.
Okay.
Yeah.
Compared to the allocation, but
Okay.
last year's no matter.
Okay, so I'm gonna hide this. I'm gonna hide the priority area because that's just kind of my work to make sure. Okay, I want to keep going back.
Do you wanna, can you, in the view, can you just make the left, the agency? Can you freeze the far left, the A column?
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna hide the impact area too.
Okay.
All right. So how do you freeze the A column?
I think it's in the view.
Okay. Where's the view?
On the top where it says home insert page layout, it's probably under the
Under the ribbon,
menu bar. For,
Okay, so, okay, here we
yeah,
go.
under view, and then there's a freeze formula, freeze pane. Yeah, freeze panes on the
Window.
window.
Where are we? Where am I not seeing?
One more to the right.
One more to the right and down, yeah.
Yeah,
And freeze.
and then you can click freeze
First column.
First.
column.
Okay, there we go. All right, so there we go. So, okay, there we go. We can see everything. So as you can see, you know, most people got at the 0.9, so 90% of their ask. YMCA actually got 0.9, but because they asked for so much, they literally hit the priority limit of 123, 322. So I divided evenly between the two, and it's 61,661 per agency, per program.
Cool.
And they'll hit, they're hitting the priority area, which we said we left like that last year at 50%.
What was their request for the 2 programs?
They were asking for 100,000 each.
Okay,
Now, here is the difficult one. They came close, but they did not, Longmont Farmers did not score high enough to get funded. But I have a solution for that we're gonna look at a second, because you're gonna have options. Because
Drop the floor.
well, we're gonna have money left over. And I have options
what,
that might remedy this, okay? But I wanted to show you, these are the scores that people gave, and this is what it is. 72 is the lowest, and you know, they came close. Community food share, very similar to last year, same thing with growing gardens. Many of these are very, very close to what they got. Actually, these guys, Longmont Wheels on Wheels, for some reason, I think last year they got 100%, and this year they got 90. They scored 90. So they went down, you know, 10%. And so they went down about $2,000. And Centro Vista actually asked for less. I think they struggled to spend the money that we gave them last year. And so they actually, which I appreciate them saying it's too hard to spend them. So they actually asked for less this year. And so they got 18,000. Actually, Caitlin, this is one of the ones that you changed because of your score. It went from 8,000, from a 0.8 to a 0.9. So because of your score and being towards the average, it went up a little bit. Dental aid got money this year. They didn't get any last year because they didn't apply. Freedom Revive, your score didn't make much of a difference at all. Caitlin, they just scored really low. So they're not getting any funding. Your score made a big difference for Medicine Horse. It put them in, they were not going to get funded. and your score got them to a point where they do receive funding this year. Mental health centers, again, they stayed pretty even with what they got. Career Abstract got a little more this year because they asked for a little more and they scored about the same as they did last year. Recovery Cafe, again, they got a little more because they asked for more, but their score was pretty consistent. That's one thing I would say, the scores were very consistent from last year. So there wasn't a huge difference. I think the only thing I would say is, so this year for staff, it was me and I asked 2 other division managers to help me because I didn't want to have it just be my scores. So I had other people help me, and our scores were, you know, they were even consistent with their scores, and Karen's scores were very consistent. So that was good to see. There were some differences, but not a whole lot. They got more this year because they asked for more. Last year they got 18, but they only asked for like 25. This year they asked for 30 and they got 27. Tech Pels, I mean, they just scored really low. So they did not get any funding. Attention Homes got a little bit less because they were at the 9. Instead of that year, they got 100% of their funding request. But again, it was consistent scoring, it just scored a little lower this year. Home Ahead actually made it. They're at the 80%. I wasn't sure because they scored low with staff, but they scored pretty high with, and I'll tell you why they scored low with staff, because that's always a question from the board. Their financials are a little iffy. They didn't have a lot of reserves. They scored low on the staff side, but they scored high enough. Their program was high enough aligned with our priorities that the board put them over, which is fine. You know, staff and board look at different things. Mother House scored, they were funded last year at 10,000, so they're going up a little bit because they asked for a little more. Safe Shelter went up a little bit because they asked for more. And so yeah, they scored, and so did In Between, asked for a little more. Blue Skies Bridge actually went down because their score went down a little bit from last year. Voices for Children asked for about, they actually got a $100 increase because they asked for a little more, and they didn't score as high. Bridge to Justice asked for more and got more. You know, they scored about the same, but because they asked for more, they got more. Same thing for Colorado Legal Services. Focus got a $300 increase because again, score didn't change much. They were at the 0.8. Immigrant Legal Center about the same as well, and they scored about the same last year. They were at a 0.9 last year, and they're at a 0.9 this year. Reentry got a lot more because they asked for a lot more. And we brought that up during the meeting actually, and they said the reason is because they're ramping up their services.
Yeah.
So they asked for more and they got more.
I thought that they actually did a really good job of explaining why they asked for so much more.
Yep. So they did well. Open Door, they scored high enough to get funding. This score was about the same as last year, but they asked for a little more. Cultivate got, I think, exactly the same, and I think they got the exact same score as last year. So El Comité asked for more this year, and they scored well. They scored better this year than they did last year. So they got, and I think it's because they had their board there and all that. They scored well. Intercambio scored well, and they got more. They asked for more. Mile High asked for more and scored well, and they got more.
They did score well last year, I seem to recall. Mile High.
Yeah, they barely got in last year, but they scored better this year. This year, for the first time, we're going to fund out Boulder County, and we did talk about we're only going to fund their case management, not their cultural events. And so we're going to work that out in the contract. Because we said the only reason that we're considering is because this time you added case management, self-sufficiency work. So they're going to get funded this year. This is one of the only, I think, if the only one that scored high enough to get 100% of their funding, the R Center. Via Mobility scored well enough to get funded on all of them. So we have $1.3 million in allocation with the current formula, and we have 1.45 in total funding, which leaves us with 80,519 of unallocated.
Eliberto, Can you go back to the ones that are not, can we see the ones that are not being?
Sure.
funded?
Yeah, so the two closest, so first is Freedom, and they are at least 8 points away from being, or 7 points away from being funded
Am I remembering right? Is that the organization that does like counseling?
for first responders. And I had a question about, and I did ask it, first responders make good money.
Right,
They can.
they can.
I know volunteers, so they didn't score, they're within, they're at least 7 points away.
Yeah.
And then then Tech Pals scored really low. They're a new agency, yeah,
Right, interesting concept.
yeah, and then the other one is Farmers Market, and they are literally within 0.7 points and 72 minus 69, like.
What, their staff score seems really low.
I'll tell you why. Yeah, I'll answer that question right now. When you look at their project budget, and I brought it up during the hearing too. They're expecting Longmont to cover between 50 and 90% of the project budget. And in our eyes, that's way too much. And also they've had issues with diversity on their board. So on the areas that they scored in pretty low. Like, I think when I look at the project budget for the ECE, it's like 90% of it comes from us.
Wow.
So that's why they scored low, and I actually scored them higher than the other staff. And I usually scored higher than Karen too, so that wasn't unsurprising.
Right.
Has it always been that high on the percentage of the program budget? I
Yeah.
just don't remember that, but are we just like, we're a little more. we're paying closer
Typically-
attention to that?
Well, typically what's happened, Caitlin, is that the board has scored them high all the time. This year, the board didn't score them as high. The people who were reviewing that didn't give them as high scores as before. And so that was the difference.
Interesting.
Yeah, because last year, I think they're, and I can bring it up, I think their board score were in the 50s. And this year, they're in the mid 40s. So that being said, I'm gonna stop sharing this because I do have a solution that we have to rework because of Caitlin's scores. But
Sorry.
no, don't be sorry. The important thing is that we got your scores.
I was late too, I'll just own it.
It's okay. It's a new system. It's okay. So I'm gonna go back to my PowerPoint.
Brenda and Eliberto, you are both have the patience of saints. I know that you were chasing multiple people around this week to get things, so thank you.
All right, so that's wrong. It should be 80,000 something, right? So we have a couple of options. We have 3 options that I'm gonna share, and they're not very different from last year. And I actually shared them with the city manager, and he thought they were fine. I miss Karen so much to run options with. So here's the first option. It's wrong because we are now down to 80,000. But it's basically, we could say, Medicine Horse now is going to get funded because of her scores. We could put that 80,000 and split it between these 2 programs. Between ECE and the WIC, they wouldn't get as much, but they still get something. We wouldn't fund Freedom Revived and Tech Trials just because they're so far away from funding scores. Where, now with the scores that we have, they're pretty close. Well, Farmers Market is within 3 points of getting, we're in 3 points of getting scored, of getting funding. So that's one option. We could fund Farmers Market, and I would have to rework the math. But I could do the 80,000 and use it all, and we would be at 0 balance. Okay, right now I had still like close to 5,000, but wiping that aside, we would be at 0 balance.
Okay.
We could we brought this up last year, if the board said, you know, we could recommend another, if there's another need that we think is important, we could put it out there. I will say that there's a lot of ARPA dollars out there for things like mental health and childcare. So I'm not sure there's any other need the board thinks is super important. I did, you know, I basically use the same one, reliable transportation is still important, it's still a need. And we could put an RFP for out there, a digital divide. So we could do that. Or like we did last year, we could transfer the funding to homelessness services, even though we're already spending over $1 million in homeless services through the human services funding as well. So I'm gonna stop sharing. So the board can have the conversation, but those are your options, unless the board has another idea that we want to entertain.
Okay. Anyone want to kick off our discussion here? Graham?
Do we know that the Boulder homeless, or sorry, the homeless services could use the money, or do they feel?
Well, of course, I mean,
their funding?
I think, of course, if you ask any agency, they're going to say they could use the funding, right?
Sure.
That being said, so for example, for Elder, I am planning that contract goes through the money that you all, we had unallocated last year that you all said could go to Elder.
Yep.
That contract goes through April of 2023.
Okay.
And I was awarded some ARPA dollars, and I'm gonna put an RFP for that program. So we have some ARPA dollars for that outreach program that we can use. So yes, the answer is, of course, we could always use money for homelessness services, and there are other resources out there. But yeah, we could always use more money for resources.
Okay.
I'm not sure it's super relevant, but how much did we do for the farmers markets last year?
86,000,
Compared to?
yeah,
Okay,
and this would be a drop.
okay, so it'd be a drop, but at least it would be sort of ballpark for last year. And maybe a message like.
Oh, I will definitely have the conversation,
Yeah.
say, hey, if this is what the board decides, I will have the conversation. You technically did not, you were close, but you did not get funded, but because we had unallocated funding, the board decided to fund you. But here are the challenges. I will have that conversation with Mackenzie and Mickey, if that's what the board decides. Or if the board wants to do an RFP, I will get working on that ASAP. You know, whatever the board wants to do, I'm just giving, and like I said, I ran it by the city manager, and he says that those are all good options.
Kimberly?
I want to fund them, but at the same time, I feel like the integrity of our system, it just feels it feels more arbitrary when we have the funds left over. So I'm just wondering, like in the future, going forward, having a more defined way of handling excess funds so that we're not making these decisions that just feel like we're not following the integrity of our system.
So I do think that, like, you know, sort of an alternative there, Kimberly, is that, like, you know, Eliberto, I don't know if you can bring up the funding allocation
Yes.
thing. One thing is that, you know, essentially we could widen the lower, you know, so one of the easiest things to do is to change that allocation, right? And to say that's, for example, instead of, I don't know what the breakdown is right now, but like, let's say it's 90 to 100, you get 100% of your funding. If you have an 80 to 90, you get 80% of your funding, whatever that is.
Yeah, so this is what, yeah, we could for next year, if we wanted to, you know, make this go down to 65, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Which is what some funders do, is rather than set like the average, you know, the score ranges ahead of time, is they wait and see what the ranges are. They find the middle one, they find the standard deviation, and they say, okay, you have to have, you know, they use all the, like, those pieces to decide, and so that they allocate all of their funding, right? Like right now, essentially we could say, you know, it's basically a 74 to 87 gets 80% of funding, 88 to 101. Are those all 13-point spreads? Is that right, Eliberto?
yeah, those are all 13. I gave you, and this is part of last year, I gave you all sorts of options of 16, and you know, there was I even need a tighter one of 11. So yeah, we had all sorts of options, and we decided that this is where we wanted to be.
I mean, like, if we wanted to stick it, like, to make it feel less like arbitrary, can really, like, we could do, instead of 13-point spreads, 15-point spreads. I don't know what that would, how that would change it. But it would mean that, because Boulder County Farmers Market is like essentially the top of who's left. Eliberto, is your matrix, if you changed these to 15-point spreads, would that automatically update the other sheet?
No, I'd have to go back and do the math, but yeah, it would, it would probably put us in a place where we actually
Overfunded.
overfund.
Yeah,
Yeah, then we have the opposite problem, so.
You'd have to cut, right?
Mhm.
And I
Because of
think
how much they asked for, they asked for 178,000.
And I think it's fine, this time, but as you're kind of saying, Caitlin, having some system worked into our process, because this is definitely kind of an ongoing problem, which is a good problem, I think, to have, that we have
Yes.
more than enough, but just knowing that we already have that structure in place for those that don't quite meet the threshold that we're using currently. So it's probably not worth changing up the scale for this. I don't know if others feel like it's worth it, but just, going forward, knowing that that's something that we want to have established.
yeah.
I think we could have a lot of, we could have a lot of conversations, and I could bring all sorts of options next year to do that.
Yeah, I agree, Kimberly. It does, and it feels a little bit weird to like adjust the scale afterward, but I also think that, like, when you're dealing with something like this, you kind of have to see what you get in, right, in terms of requests, and then what the scores are, and then, if you want to have a cutoff, yes, okay, but then once you have the cutoff, do you use all your funding, and is that like the right way to use the fund, right, to do the funding, is like to not use it and reallocate it
Right.
outside.
A couple of years ago, we what we did was, remember, we had this, and what we ended up doing, we ended up boosting the housing stability ones.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So it's not unprecedented to do it, even though we haven't done this where we have agents that didn't score high enough to fund, and we fund that is new. But I mean, again, it's funding that we didn't allocate, and we'd have to figure out how to allocate anyway.
and I think, like you said, Boulder County Farmers Market is relatively close, at least on one of their programs. You said it's like less than a point.
Yeah.
So, other thoughts from folks on the options?
I guess
Deanna?
I'll just say that to me, it does feel sort of arbitrary to give money to an agency that didn't quite hit the cutoff, but at the same time, I think being super rigid and not thinking about how the formulas impact funding is also sort of arbitrary in a sense. Like, these are real programs and real people, right? So I think I'm more comfortable, I guess, sort of dropping the floor or adjusting to give this extra to the farmers market than just shunting it to another program that hasn't articulated a need at this point, right? Like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I like option one.
Mhm.
And here's the thing, I mean, one, I think this is a transparent conversation that we're having, right? We saw the scores, the board is having the conversation, and it's unallocated funding that, either way, the board would have to find some way to allocate. And so this is an option. Doesn't have to be the option you choose, but it is an option.
And you said, like, I mean, the proposal you suggested was around 40%. It would probably end up being a little bit less than 40% because of
It would, I gotta do the math.
it's a fairly
yeah.
significant impact in terms of the percentage of what's being funded.
Right.
And so I think that, and we have, my recollection is we've never actually come close to fully funding their requests, because they're almost always significantly more than 50% of the budget or the program area,
Right.
or the priority area, sorry.
Is
So,
there,
Go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, Caitlin.
no, it's okay.
So is their request 90% of their budget, or is what we fund them 90% of their budget?
What they're requesting us is 90%, not of their agency budget, their project.
The project budget?
Yeah,
Okay, so but what we've funded them in the past is probably closer to 50% of their.
Or even
project
less,
budget,
yeah.
40%,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay, then they
Um,
should stop asking us for so much money, right?
Yeah, they never get close to what they ask
Right.
for.
But I think they also know that the more they ask for, the more,
I mean, go big or go home, I get it, but
Yeah,
that's causing a problem with staff scores too, right? Because you're looking at the,
and I told them, I told them straight out, is like, hey, I'm not gonna score you high on this because, typically an agency's program budget, and I told them is between 2 and 20%, sometimes as high as 25, and I usually score a little lower once they pass that 20%. So when you're at 58%, or when you're at 98% asking for a city of Longmont to cover, then I'm gonna score you pretty low. So you're not gonna see a lot of increase in staff scores moving forward,
I mean,
unless they change.
but if they ask closer to what we'd historically funded them, ironically, they might actually get more money because the staff score will go up.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
so I do have a question, Eliberto, and
Mhm.
I don't recall, I wasn't looking at them this year, but I'm curious. So we have not historically funded them at like what they request. Do they actually, does their program budget actually, like, do they actually augment the program budget? Or do
every
they,
year.
or do they reduce it?
Like, do they cover the shortfall and the ask from us? Is that what you're wondering, Caitlin?
Yeah, do they cover it, or do they just actually like make the program smaller?
I think they just make the program smaller at the end of the day.
And part of why I ask is, like, this one's an interesting one in the sense of, most of these others, not all, most of these others are like nonprofits, and they're like, their entire agency is around providing, either the service or similar programs, right? Like,
Right.
even like dental aid, right? Like their whole thing is providing that. Whereas Boulder County Farmers Market, like, most of the other like programs they have are not intended to they're intended to be profitable, right? Whereas these specific programs are programs that are, essentially, I mean, if I were to put it a little bit crassly, it's almost like the city is paying Boulder County Farmers Market to administer a to say like, you're the farmers market that does all of this. And we want to support having more healthy food. Therefore, like,
Right.
we could do it, but it would cost us a whole lot more. And you've already got the infrastructure and things to do it. And therefore, we're going to fund the program through you. And I
I
think
guess
that's,
the only thing I would argue, I think that you could say that for almost any program. The city could do a lot of these things. We could do case management, but the Art Center has the infrastructure, they have the historic, they have the outside funding. I think the big difference is most of the other nonprofits are 501c3s and have a little bit easier time raising funds, where even though they're working on their 501, so things may be very different next year, because when I talked to Mackenzie during the hearing, they are really close to getting their 501c3. So this may be a hopefully, changing scenario next year where they are able to raise more funds. They're even raising more funds with the C4 now. So it could change next year too.
Kimberly.
I'm curious with the ECE program. I know there's a lot of state funding for that and also Boulder County funding for that. So it's interesting that this request is addressing such a large portion of their budget. During the hearing, did they talk about other partners and their?
They did, I mean, but not a lot of other funding, just other, like, they partner with the Boulder County Public Health to do it.
Are some of their other like sort of partners and supporters, are they more like in kind?
Yeah,
And-
like for example, Via and their delivery.
Yeah, and I mean, that might also be a conversation perhaps with them, is to actually like quantify some of those in-kind donations.
Right.
Because, like the program budget for, the like some of the WIC stuff where they were actually delivering it to people, if they're not actually accounting for the fact that like, if Via didn't donate this, they'd have to pay for transportation for it.
Right.
Like, not saying that we necessarily need to like obviously they're asking for a lot. They've gotten quite a bit, but that is something that like, you know, if they're not reflecting that in their budget, you know, effectively, that means our scores are going to be lower. But just something for them to think about, I think is, and you know,
I remember the other piece where they scored low was their board, right? And that has nothing to do with their budget. That also hurt them because that's weighted.
yeah, absolutely.
So it's not just their budget, but the budget was a big part.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the only part.
Okay. Graham, were you about to say something? Sorry.
No.
Okay. All right. Does anyone want to tackle the like how we deal with the extra funding and make a motion accordingly?
Do we need a motion for it or do we need to, okay,
Well, I think we need two motions. We need one to accept the allocation formula as it is, or the matrix as it is. And then we need another motion to, what do you all want to do? Is it option A that we fund farmers market, or do you want me to do an RFP, or do you want me to put it into homeless services?
Or something else? Yep.
Or if you have another idea, yeah, I'm always open to other ideas.
I will move. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Caitlin.
Eliberto, do you think we have to accept the matrix first, or I think so, right? Like,
I think so. I think that makes more sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Deanna, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I was just gonna move to accept the matrix that Eliberto prepared.
Okay.
Is that a sufficient motion?
Yep.
Okay.
And Brenda and I checked it 4 times this time. I was like, I'm not letting this happen again.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay. And do we have a motion for how to allocate the remaining funds, which is not the 100,000 that was shown in the presentation, but was
No, it's
roughly 80,000 from the
it's 80,519 that I would. Yeah,
All motion, we do option one.
and that is the one to allocate those remaining funds proportionally to the 2 Boulder County Farmers Market programs.
To programs within 5 points of the threshold. So I think that might include Medicine Horse.
well, Medicine Horse,
Made it because of Caitlin.
Caitlin's scores brought Medicine Horse up enough.
They're out of that range anyway. Okay, very good.
Yeah,
Okay,
So it's just the 2 farmers markets.
yeah.
In situations like this, where it's hard to decide, I tend to be a utilitarian unless great is good for the greatest number, and to me, the farmers market serves more people, I mean, overall, than any of the others, so I would say if I had to make a choice, I would choose the most good for the most people. So I'm gonna second your motion.
Okay, we have a second. All
Can we
those
get-
in favor, please. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. Can I get a clarification on your motion? Because
Yes.
do it from the 5 points to just the 2 agencies?
So the solution in option one is to fund agencies that are within 5 points of the threshold. In the presentation, Aliberto had that included Medicine Horse, but that's not actually included anymore. So it would just be older county farmers markets 2 programs
right,
that are within 5 points. So
yeah.
Okay, and Robert has seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All right.
Okay, I will do the math. I think the way I'm gonna do it is I'm gonna add both of those the 2 programs and find what the proportion is, and I'll make that same proportion to the 80,512.
Okay.
So I'll do it mathematically that way. So I'll add both and say, you know, what is the percentage of the total is with the 178 and the 30, and that's how I'll do it. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, well, we did another year, and I think, you know, I didn't think that we would have money left over because there was such a high, like, it was almost 1.8 million in ask for 1.4. But we had money left over and this is how we're gonna use it, and I feel that it was a reasonable option. I think all three were reasonable options, so,
I,
all right.
I was gonna add, I thought we had some, some of our, Boulder County Farmers Market didn't necessarily score as well as they have in the past on some things, but at least from the agency hearings I was at, it did seem like some of the agencies really took to heart feedback that we've given over the
Oh,
past
yeah.
years and where we have focused. And I
Yeah.
saw some really strong, stronger applications from those agencies as a result. And I hope that they see that and know that those efforts are appreciated. So.
Yeah, I agree. I will say I was very impressed with the diversity in the boards. I have seen more diversity this year than I have in the last 4 years of doing this. So kudos to the board for continuing to push that. And hopefully, that hurt farmers market, and hopefully they will continue to work on getting more diverse. So.
And thank you for all the work that you did, Eliberto, and the rest of staff. We cannot do this without your help and coordination. And so I want to, make sure that we acknowledge that. And also, you're the one who's talking to a lot of these agencies through the year and helping them with it. And so we can set that as a goal, but you're the one who's talking to these agencies and impressing upon them what the board has wanted. So thank you very much.
Thank you. No, yeah, it was a lot of work, but we got it done. I appreciate all the work that you put in. So yes.
It was really great seeing so much diversity increase on the boards.
Yeah.
And to hear the people talking about how that diversity on the boards has positively impacted their organization and their goals and their services was great too, because that's the point of doing it, right? But it's really nice to hear them feel that and actualize that. So that was nice to
Yeah,
see.
I was impressed this year with the number of agencies that increased their board diversity. So thank you. I feel that I am ready to approach council with these recommendations. I feel justified with all of the recommendations that we have brought. I think everything has been, Brendan and I talked about integrity and being above board and being transparent. And I think we've done a good job of that tonight. So I appreciate that. All right. Our next interesting agenda item. I have to bring up another PowerPoint because there's been a change in how we select board members. And so.
Uh-oh.
Tell us more, please.
So this year, let me share this. This year, the city council has asked us to interview potential board members. Let me share the screen. They want us to do a because they're still going to get interviewed at board accounts by the council, but they want us to do a pre-interview.
Basically give them the crib notes for how to interview people.
Basically.
Okay.
And so I'm going to go over the process and then but we have a choice to make. And so we're going to get to the choice here in a second, but I'll go over the process. So like I said, this year, we're going to do a pre-interview before they go to city council, where they'll get interviewed as well, but they want us to send them a memo. There's a memo, and I have the template that we'd have to write. Here's what we have openings, folks. We have a lot of openings. We have 3 regular members ending in 2025, 1 unexpired in 2024. I just found out today that we don't get to say, if we select people, we don't get to choose where they go. That is we can recommend, but that is city council's prerogative to see where they go. So we have 3 current applications. We have Robert, who has applied again to be on the board. We have Crystal Prieto, who came to one of our, no, did she make it? She never made it, but she is a Leadership Fellows graduate, person of color. So, I had some good conversations. There was another person that had really good conversations named Chet, but he ended up not applying. And actually, he did show up to
one of the.
Yes, I was pretty disappointed. And then Ellen Dooley, they call her Lonnie Dooley. She's pretty well known. She's active, so she may be an interesting board member, have different perspectives. She knows a lot about human services and where to get stuff in the community. So we have these 3 applicants for 4 positions. So we're going to be, if they all get appointed, we'll still be 1 short. That won't be filled until the June mid-year phase. Okay.
Eliberto, I do have a question on that. If, if someone said they were interested like this week or next, it's too late to apply, correct?
Yeah, I closed on October 24. Yeah, I kept pushing it out. You know, I talked to the city clerk's office and they said, yeah, just overall, this year, they did the most marketing ever and got the least amount of applicants ever. Or not, I'm not sure if it's ever, but they didn't have as many as they usually do.
So is our quorum defined by head count or percentage of the board?
No, it's presented, so explain that question.
Is quorum defined by a certain number relative to the total board quantity?
Yes,
or is
it's, well, it's percentage. It's you have to have a majority of however many board members. So
Present, okay,
right now, we are at 7 board members, so we have to have at least 4.
right.
Quorum.
So having one less board member and one more seat doesn't really negatively impact quorum.
It sort of does, because if you only have 8, so we get, right now, we are at 7. And if. Wait, this is interesting. So Stacy. Whose positions are missing?
Stacy and Karen.
Karen.
No, Karen's not on the board.
Karen's
Who's missing?
No, we had a
Oh, and
Karen.
Brian is termed out. So those are 2. How do we have 3?
Didn't,
This is terrible, but the woman who passed away.
Oh, Karen.
That's.
That-
what I was
that's-
like,
that Karen.
Yeah.
Yes, I was thinking the other Karen, but yeah, you're right,
Yeah.
Karen. So those are the 3 that we have, and Robert is in a unfilled, so. So yeah, so we do have 4, because Robert is one of those, so we only have, so really for 3, we only have 2 applicants,
Mhm.
right? So we're gonna have we're gonna be 1 under, if everybody passes. So, go ahead, do we have a?
sorry.
I know somebody who applied, but you said that, so the October 24th is a hard deadline.
Yeah,
That's
that
too
was hard.
bad. Okay. He'd be
Yeah, I
such a
tried to
great
get-
addition.
Yeah, I tried to get the word out as much as I could on Facebook. I know the city did a lot. So here is a choice that we have to make. So we've been given a choice. There's 2 choices by the city clerk's office. The board could vote to allow the chair and vice chair, along with the liaison, myself or Brenda, to meet with these folks and not have a public meeting, notice meeting. Or the board could say, we want to, all of us want to interview them, and then we have to schedule a regular meeting for that. So that's the choice before the board. Do you want all of you do it together, or would you allow Caitlin, Graham, and myself to do the interview? Go ahead.
So my personal opinion is that I'm comfortable not participating in that process if it's easier to do it without a special meeting. But also, if you guys want help doing that process, then I would be okay with that too. So I guess I would suggest, I think you and Caitlin need to decide whether you want to do it alone or whether you want us to help you with it. And I would support whatever you and Caitlin feel most comfortable with. Personally.
Other thoughts?
I think either option, I think it's fine. I feel bad that you would have a heavier weight of having to do all these meetings, so definitely want to offer availability as well.
Graham, do you have a preference?
I'm fine with either, because I think I'm gonna be there for either.
Yeah, you're gonna be there for either.
Right.
I'm good with whatever's.
I think the only, when I was thinking about this, the only thing about you 2 doing it is there may be more flexibility, right? Less schedules to try and wrangle.
That's actually one thing I was thinking is like, it seems, and also like when city council does it, there's like not a lot of flexibility because everyone's trying to be there, but also when you have like 7 people trying to ask questions from city council
In 3 minutes.
in like 3 minutes, like it's like the shortest interview ever, right? Like, so, you know, I lean toward it just being Graham and me just for the flexibility and like moving it along. But I like, if anyone has a strong opinion of wanting to be there, I also understand that, so.
Nope, I certainly trust you guys to manage that, so.
So I think we need a motion so I can let city clerk know that this is where we're going.
Then I will move to accept option one of the interview format options on how to proceed, which is to allow the chair and vice chair, along with the liaison, to interview the applicants and prepare the memo to council.
And either way, it has to be recorded. Like we're recording right now, it had to be recorded either way. Because the council wants to see it.
Okay. How long are these?
As long as you want, you're the boss.
No, I'm kidding. Okay,
3
so
minutes.
Deanna has made a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand.
I think Robert should abstain.
Yeah.
That's a good idea, since he's pleasing applicant.
Okay.
So
All right.
we're gonna list that Robert abstains from that vote, and that's fine. And yeah, and we do have to interview Robert too. Everybody
Okay.
has to get interviewed. So Brenda and I will work with you two to create a schedule, and we'll offer it to Robert and to Ellen and Crystal, and they have to be. You know, they have to be willing to come to the interview to even because they're, so we may, you know, if somebody says no, then we might be too short.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
and I think that's all the business I have.
I have to find where my thing disappeared to, my agenda. Sorry, it's in here somewhere. All right, that was, we do have other business on here. Is there other business that anyone has to bring forward?
I have something, just, I think at some point, maybe we should talk about whether we thought the process this time of having limited numbers of people, you know, because this is a new system, right, for how we did the interviews.
Yeah, I was trying to put that
Have that.
in our December meeting, that was the agenda, was like, and we do this every year, we do a debrief
Yeah,
to see, you know, what we thought, because there's definitely pluses and minuses, and I think that, yeah.
okay,
And then in January, I think what we need to start really is, you know, our need assessment was in 2020. What should we be considering, you know, now we're 2023, you know, so what should we be considering? Whether it's just a survey with our nonprofits, whether it's something more expansive, I don't know if we have the funding for it, but some sort of, you know, relook at the need assessment.
are we putting that then on January? Is that
Yeah,
what you're saying?
January's
Okay.
agenda.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I want to start as early as I can on the human service funding, and I would love if anybody is great at doing to avoid what happened this year. And that last year, if anybody wants to help me figure out that standard deviation, how do we work, how do we ensure that we're flexible? Caitlin, you help me?
I got you covered. It may
Okay.
not be me. It could potentially, my husband also does. My husband is the Excel master in the
That
house.
would be,
And I may just like connect you with him, as you know, and he's more than willing to help and dig in, and that's
yeah. Yeah, 'cause it's not really year, we've had more than, this has happened more than just last year.
Yeah,
Cause I remember we bumped up all the housing stability because we had
Extra money.
extra money. So it's been a regular occurrence, and maybe we gotta figure out, to Kimberly's earlier point, a more flexible system that will prevent that.
Yeah.
Like I said,
Yep.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I'd love to make your job easier, Eliberto, so you're not having to run, 5 different scenarios, or if the board decides to change the weighting of something, having to rerun it. And if we can set up something that can help, like, give us, hey, we put all the scores in and we adjusted the weights or whatever, and here's kind of the distribution of it. What is the way that like gets us to, we've allocated the funding and it feels fair,
Yeah,
I'd love for us to kind of be able to be flexible with that, and not like you spending, I don't know how much time you spend, but I know you do a lot. And if we can make your life easier, that would be amazing.
okay.
any other business or things that folks want to announce or anything? I will mention, I think our next meeting for the board is in December.
We should check to make sure it's not like
Right.
in a very
Yeah, but I was gonna say that, I know that like Thanksgiving and holidays and all of that are coming up. I hope everyone has, safe and happy times celebrating with families and so forth. If anyone is interested, there is a group Feet Forward in Boulder that serves about 250 people on Thanksgiving Day with turkey and sides. They usually have a commercial kitchen that they try to cook in. They have not been able to secure one this year. And so if you have capacity or know someone who might be interested in cooking a turkey or extra sides and that sort of thing, a friend of mine is trying to coordinate for folks to do that and bring it to the band shell in Boulder on Thanksgiving Day to help feed many of the unhoused folks who congregate in Boulder in particular at the band shell. So if you know anyone who's willing to cook like a 12-pound turkey or make a side or something, it would be, I think, very much appreciated.
Thank you. So our next board meeting is on December 8th. So I think it's early enough that it's not gonna interfere. It's after Thanksgiving and yeah, it's December 8th. We'll have it here. And then I'm presenting these recommendations on December 20th. As a reminder, these are just recommendations. Council can and has changed before, right? We get to recommend, but it's their decision. They get to decide, typically they do accept the funding, but they could change it. So I always put that caveat.
Yep. Eliberto, and do I need to attend that again this year?
Yeah, I would appreciate if you could. Yeah, usually the board chair, and you don't have to say anything usually, but usually the board chair is there.
I show up.
And I hope Brian shows up next month. This will be his last board meeting. We'll have a card for him for sure.
Okay,
Yeah, he's done it for 9 years.
Yeah,
that
So-
is incredible.
big commitment.
Yep.
All right. If there is nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All right. See you all in December, and thank you all for the work in October.
Yes, a lot of meetings. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Bye,
How
bye.
do I stop the recording? Okay.
And
When we say yes, right?